Welcome, guys and girls. Today we have a special treat for you folks. Today I have Jordan Cutler, who is a senior software engineer at Pinterest. So myself, my software engineering skills are limited to COBOL for 10 years and then Python, but I always like to learn from the experts in the field. So I thought it would be a great idea to invite Jordan and chat about how to get into software engineering, what tools and stacks, the job situation, and more. But first, I'll let Jordan introduce himself.
Yeah, so glad to be here, Raj. And yeah, I am currently a senior engineer at Pinterest. I just started last Monday. So yeah, it's definitely been a great time so far. And I'm excited to share a lot of my learnings and, more of what I do.
Excellent. Thank you. And congratulations on your new job. So, the first question, if you can restart your software engineering career, what changes will you make?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it's hard because I made a good amount of mistakes in my
Mhm,
internship. I've talked about this, plenty of times where like I haven't gotten, a return offer for my
mhm,
second Twitter internship. And I feel like I corrected a lot of those mistakes. Like I had the chance, to correct them once I sort of started my real career,
mhm,
as a real software engineer, not an intern. But I guess to touch on that quickly, the main thing that I would change, maybe if I knew all things going in as an intern, and this applies, both to interns and, if you're starting out
mhm,
full time or just, even if you're a senior engineer right now, it's like really understand that your role isn't to, just sort of be in a corner and code. I mean, nowadays, like I notice like my coding time is probably down to like 20 to 30%,
mhm,
and that won't be the case if you're a junior. You'll definitely be coding a lot more, but still like you need to be building good relationships with your team members. You need to, uh, collaborate with them, pair with them, give feedback on their designs, but do it in a respectful way. Learn how to, communicate appropriately on those types of, you know, interactions where people can sometimes get defensive, about
mhm.
their work, and you need to sort of bring feedback in a nice way. So overall, just we'll talk more about how to improve those skills, but that's what I would change if I knew back intern. But I would say that there are some things that I wish I knew, even when I first started full time as well. Those things would be reading more. I guess it kind of ties in to the last point, which is
Mhm.
like reading more about some of those soft skill pieces. Like, for example, the book Crucial Conversations was huge for me. Radical Candor, I just read recently, and that one was, awesome.
Mhm.
Smart Brevity for like writing, presentations, all that stuff. Just incredibly helpful. I wish I read it, earlier in my career.
Mhm.
And then the other thing, like technical skill wise, would be I think I had this, mindset as a junior where I would just get done a problem like as soon as I could and then go to the next one. And that was good for sure for career growth, I think,
Mhm.
and getting to the like promoted to the next level. But I do wish that I spent more time understanding the underlying technology a little bit more rather than just sort of, copy paste, move on type of thing. I definitely did like there's a scale to it. You
Mhm.
can go on the extreme end, you can go on the like not extreme at all. I think I was somewhere in the middle, but I wish I spent a little bit more time, I would say. So I would say, if you're just constantly moving on to the next problem and you feel like you don't have that much time to dedicate to learning, it's going
Mhm.
to get worse once you're senior because you will have much less time, in general.
Mhm.
So make sure to do it as a junior.
Got it. No, really useful advice. I mean, I think the more senior you get in technical field, the expectation is to scale yourself, right? So when you are junior, the more knowledge you gather, the foundation is built so that you can utilize that to grow further. So software developer jobs, there are a lot of jobs out there, which is a great field to get into. So how can someone get a job as a software developer?
It is, I wish I had a better answer for you right now. It's definitely tough right now. You need to
Hmm.
up your game, I will
Hmm.
say, in general, like referrals are the way to go. You absolutely need to get referrals nowadays. Cold applications, I mean, in my past experience, I would see hundreds of applications come in as soon as a job opening opens.
Wow.
And those are coming in like, regardless of level. And I mean, you work in big tech, I'm sure are familiar. Like
Yeah.
it's probably even larger scale than that. It's probably thousands, right? And
Hmm.
so, I mean, my job, like at Pinterest, I got through a referral.
Hmm.
A lot of the interviews, I recently went on the job search. A lot of the interviews that I got were through referrals.
Hmm.
So the way to get referrals, the key to networking, I would say, is instead of kind of like coming across like you want to get something or anything like that, try to find ways to give value first and
Hmm.
then get value after.
Hmm.
And in my situation, I will say like it's a little hard for me to give sort of practical like tactical tips around that
Hmm.
because you know as a senior it's a little bit different. I also have kind of like an audience. I've built up connections sort of
Hmm.
naturally through those means, but at a high level, if you could think, maybe it's a compliment, maybe it's, I mean, for me, right?
Yeah.
If maybe you're trying to get a referral from me, it could be like, I see sometimes people, they will like comment on my posts a
Right.
lot, right? And they'll do it maybe for a month, straight. And like, it's all genuine, all that stuff. And then maybe eventually something comes up and they're
Hmm.
like, oh, hey, Jordan, I saw you posted, about this thing.
Hmm.
And then they're gonna come to the top of my inbox, right?
Yeah.
Because I already have seen their face plenty of times. It's like, okay, I'm gonna respond and try to help them out any way I can. So overall, just try to give value before you get value. And one last tip actually I'll give on that is one way to give value is really like to not, insert negative value. Uh
Mm.
and negative value is kind of like you're taking up someone's time
Hmm.
and not giving like any effort toward,
Hmm.
helping them help you at
Right.
all. So I'm sure you're familiar with this. You probably have seen DMs come in where they are just long blocks of text
Yeah.
that are just like, this is everything that I've done in my past life
Yeah.
and now please refer me. Like
Hmm.
compare that to maybe it's like a very concise message where it says, something along the lines of uh hey Jordan, I saw that you work here and I wanted to let you know like I have this experience with this. I think it aligns well with this. I know you're super busy, but if you would spare a
Yeah.
minute, here is like all my like just bullet listed like info so you could easily like copy and paste into a referral or whatever type of thing. There's some refining to do to
Yeah.
that messaging there, but like overall that's the high level picture, is to make it easy for someone to help you.
No, I love it. Also, I will say, yeah, you mentioned that you built up an audience and stuff. It also works for the folks who have not built up an audience because a lot of people get jobs in top companies like Pinterest, Amazon. But the one thing that really I want to double down on it is power of networking. Like I get so many messages where people say, can you refer me with their resume, right? And they have not done anything. So one of the easy way is like what Jordan said, basically put feedback on their post, and then if you can add something valuable, it's not just to build a connection with the author, but it also increases your connections. You will see other folks will reply and add you to their connection network, right? As you keep on putting valuable comments on someone's posts, this is like a magnification effect that happens. Also, it helps you think as well. Like it's not like if you just like is fine, and then sometimes people just put one line, this is nice, this is great, they're fine, they're much better than refer me now.
Yeah.
But if you think a little bit, right, and put something down, that helps you to think a little bit deeper on the subject as well. That helps you down the line. On the little tactical front, Jordan, what tools or tech stack are they expected to know to get a software engineering job?
Yeah, I'd say it depends a lot, you know, per the job, but overall, like just make sure you know the fundamentals and some of the most popular technologies. I mean, for me, I interviewed recently as a, you know, front end engineer, and no one's going to quiz you in Angular. No one's going to quiz you in um Vue or Svelte or something. No React. Just, you
Right.
know the most popular one. You don't need to go out there and learn every single technology known to man. You know,
Mhm,
I'd say it is helpful to explore, you know, maybe the documentation pages of some of these, you know, new technologies, see kind of the patterns, the ways
mhm,
things work differently, and, you know, stay in touch with the industry. But it's much better to gain, you know, maybe strong knowledge in, let's say, like React, and just
mhm,
pick, you know, your favorite backend language. It could be Node, just JavaScript, Node on the back end. So that way you don't even need to learn, you know, a separate
mhm.
language. Like, or I don't know, for some reason you like Python because maybe you studying, you know, the leak code interviews in Python,
Yeah.
then, you know, learn a backend framework in Python, stick with that. And then, you know, learn one, you know, a couple levels outside of that. What is setting up, you know, an app look like with the database, and,
Mhm.
you know, maybe connecting CDN or something like that. And, you know, you're off to the races. You'll be much better than most of the candidates out there that try to just know every single technology, you know?
Mhm. And then do you like, as you do these projects, I like the idea that application, database, CDN, like, is it recommended that they show them in LinkedIn, GitHub, or that's not that important?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on I guess like how popular it is or how complex. I mean, of course, open source, you know, is going to be like, feel free, you know, just open source it if you can. That
Mhm,
way recruiter can check it out if they're so inclined. I
mhm.
know in general, I mean, managers and recruiters, like the average, you know, that they spend is going to be like less than 10 seconds,
10 seconds,
you know,
yeah.
on your resume. They are probably not going to check out the links. So it's more, I would say, like the resume, try to beef it up from a like presentation
Mhm,
perspective. And that's not just, I'm not saying that from like a formatting side.
mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
like,
I know,
make it
content.
look like if someone were to click into that thing,
Mhm,
that they would see something good. They won't, they probably won't click into it, but make it look like they would. And,
mhm.
you know, you'll probably be in much better shape.
Got it. And then, in the cloud side, we shifted a lot more on the LinkedIn. So basically, the application process, checking the profile, is that same in the software engineering as well? Or still the tried and tested Word doc resume is the way to go?
Uh, Oh, wait. So are you talking about like two different resume formats or
Yeah,
something?
like sometimes some jobs require you to send your Word document resume, and some jobs just say like,
Oh,
give your LinkedIn URL. Like, which profile is like more important these days, in your opinion?
ooh, yeah. I mean, I know that I've been told that managers that look at resumes, if there is not a LinkedIn URL there,
Mhm.
they will just automatically, you know,
Discard.
discard it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So absolutely, you need the LinkedIn URL. It's tough to say, like, I mean, you know, what would be more important. The first thing that people look like or look
Mhm.
at is resumes.
Mhm.
So I would say it's probably more important.
Mhm.
But I mean, really just it's, you know, it's not that hard to
Right.
get the basics down for both. So
Mhm.
and by the way, you know, we'll talk about some of my resources later, but readers can
Mhm.
check out, you know, my articles on
Sure.
getting jobs, and I have tons of advice there on how to, you know, do your resume the right way.
Excellent. Excellent. And also, like 20 years back when I graduated, Java was all the rage, Jordan. So, what's any specific programming language these days which is better than others?
JavaScript all the way, man.
JavaScript all the way.
I mean, yeah, 100%. Like JavaScript is just taking
Mhm.
over the front end and back end. I mean, the only thing that is kind of like a detriment about it is that it's not as performant, and so you see a lot of these tools being written in Go and
Hmm.
Rust
Hmm.
that are sort of like tools for JavaScript
Hmm.
development, but like they're just, written like ES Build is one of them. I forget whether it's written in Go
Hmm.
or Rust, but it's basically like the compiler for, the JavaScript bundles and things like that. And um, you don't, I know I have not written or looked at really a line of Go or Rust, even
Hmm.
though, they are sort of becoming a bit more popular. And I think
Popular.
that's
Hmm.
totally fine. Like, yeah, if you were to pick one language, I know some devs will probably get mad at me for even just answering that question, but I would say JavaScript just because it's, you could use it on the front end and the back end. It's the
Hmm.
easiest to just sort of get going with. And um, yeah, it's good from a learning perspective too.
Got it. And do you recommend, or what method do you follow? Like, do you master one language to a lot of depth, and then do you learn other languages, or you stick to just one? Like, what's your recommendation there?
Yeah, I would say at some point you should learn
Hmm.
more than one language.
Hmm.
I mean, I think for me, for example, like learning Scala was one of those transitional periods
Hmm.
where it sort of changed the way that I program because I learned it.
Hmm.
So, before, if I guess for those unfamiliar with Scala, it's a functional programming language,
Hmm.
and you don't like mutate anything, or at
Hmm.
least you're not supposed to, right?
Hmm.
And everything, it actually reads so much nicer. It's basically just like, you're sort of transforming data over and over, guys. I guess if people have worked in maybe like Hadoop or something like that, or Spark,
Hmm.
it's probably something similar. I
Hmm.
think Spark, you use Scala for Spark, don't you?
Yes,
Or
you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, I'd say if I only had learned JavaScript, I
Hmm.
probably wouldn't have picked up some of those patterns that I feel like have helped me write better JavaScript,
Hmm.
after learning Scala. So try to pick languages where they'll give you something new to them.
Hmm.
I think for
Hmm.
me, the next one on the docket is probably Rust, because
Rust.
I
Hmm.
know that it, helps you learn a bit more about like memory management, garbage collection,
Hmm.
allocation, stuff like that, while still being maybe more fun than C++ or something like
Right.
that.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's switch gear. Let's say someone followed your advice, really good advice, and they got into the software engineering job. So how do they grow from there, Jordan?
Yeah, so if you are, on the junior side, I would
Hmm.
say that it's most important to make sure that you can show that you're constantly growing your technical skills.
Hmm.
And the way that I like to like think about it, and also I will literally say this,
Hmm.
to my teammates,
Hmm.
is you want to behave like a sponge, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You want to be someone that will just soak in, you get new information, you soak it in, and it doesn't come out. I don't know, unless if you squeeze it really or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I literally, onboarding right now, I'm telling my teammates like I'm gonna try to be the best sponge that I can be.
Hmm.
I don't want to waste your time. I want, you to help me out with onboarding, and I'll try
Hmm.
to learn as much as I can as quickly as I can. So there have been cases, where I see people don't do that, right, as
Hmm.
they're getting hired on a new job. And if you're a junior engineer, you're kind of viewed as like an investment, right?
Right.
You want to be someone that is constantly growing and will eventually kind of pay off that investment
Hmm.
of sort of teaching you all these things.
Hmm.
But if you're not actually learning any of these things, or you're repeating some of those same mistakes many times, then it kind of shows that you're not,
Right.
working off for that investment. And, unfortunately, in some cases, that means that they need to go back on the job search.
Right.
So it's one of the most important things to really show that you can, learn from what people are teaching you around you, and not make the mistake. I would say more than 3 or 4 times. I think it's okay, to make the same mistake like twice,
Hmm.
as long as you sort of are picking up on the patterns and gradually improving, over
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
One signal, for that is if, when you first start putting up code changes as a junior, one of my first code changes, it had like 50 plus comments on it. And, think about if every single PR that you put
Oh
up,
my
it had
God.
50 plus comments, like,
Wow.
that's going to be a no-go. But
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, right, over time, it's going to gradually decrease because you're learning, you're picking up, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do things this way, like
Right.
that type of thing. So, yeah, if you see that number staying the same, then that is something definitely to watch out for sure.
Mm-hmm. But then based on the company, right? Like I think all good companies, there's a good culture. So if you see the same comments appearing, hopefully you have a mentor who you can go to and they
Yeah,
should be able to guide you. So it goes two ways, right? So it's the mentor's job to give you direction. At the same time, like you said, it's your job or the candidate's job to make sure that the mentor's time is not wasted, right?
exactly.
To the mentor should not be repeating the same information over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and one thing that I would add, to making sure that you are taking advantage of your mentor, the
Hmm.
best way you can. I've
Hmm.
also been in situations, where like, I mean, I mentor others, and ideally the mentee is driving and showing kind of
Yes.
that ambition, a
Hmm.
lot of the time, and finding where you know some of the best questions are to ask, maybe
Hmm.
seeing some of the things that the mentor is doing and
Right.
asking, hey, like, how do you do that thing, how did you approach that, rather than coming to the one-on-one each time and not
Yeah.
having anything, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
just making sure that, because I see sometimes like a failure mode, I'll call it, is like mentees or maybe junior engineers, they might be too focused on solely like coding and trying to work, that they
Hmm.
don't take that much time, to reflect and think
Hmm.
about where are the areas that, they want to grow, and
Hmm.
where are the areas that they should, be asking their mentor about so that they can learn from them
Hmm.
on their mentor. It can do that. And I do
Hmm.
that too, like where I'll
Hmm.
bring things up to the mentee,
Hmm.
but it's much better, when the mentee brings it up, because then I don't know, it just almost feels like a lecture session or something like
Right.
that otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. Excellent. No, good advice. Also, I would add these days, man, some of the newsletter, like your newsletter is like awesome. So a lot of the tips and tricks that people can take and grow, they don't need to rely on their company or particular person in their company anymore. There is so much wisdom out there. And it's like amazing. Like all the great high quality newsletters that you and some of the others put out is like incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll talk about that as well. But first, Jordan, we want to know, so where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years from now?
It's a great question. So I think, my goal right now is to expand upon my, technical leadership
Mhm.
capabilities,
Mhm.
grow more from a technical perspective. I think one thing that I honestly worry about
Mhm.
is that writing on my newsletter and, dedicating kind of my weekends to that in a way, I just hope that it doesn't mean that my technical skills have, sacrificed. And I'm looking forward to, my time at Pinterest, learning from so many of the awesome people that, I met here already, and like,
Mhm.
I'm going to be working with closely. I think just being in that environment, I am hoping that it will be like really solid exposure for the technical skill side that I
Mhm.
almost feel like I worry that I miss if I spend, most of my weekend time like doing the
Mhm.
writing and things like that. And then, yeah, I think just continuing to, grow the newsletter and apply a lot of the things that I write about.
Mhm.
Sometimes the things that I write about, they are kind of like things that I'm just learning and just
Mhm.
exploring
Mhm.
and sharing, how maybe some of those like learnings that I'm learning about now,
Mhm.
they tie in with some of the past experiences that either went well or didn't go well. And
Mhm.
so, it's sort of a good foundation for that, but it's and everything that I write about, it doesn't just like just because I wrote about it doesn't mean I'm an expert in it either.
Right.
So, just making sure that I'm still applying a lot of those things as well, and following my own advice too. So,
Mm.
yeah, just keep constantly growing.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Should people focus more on the front end or on the back end? Like which one is like more important for job market? I ask you because I get this question a lot, right? And I'm always a back end guy, so my view is a little biased. But I wanted to ask you, as someone who is a software engineer.
Yeah, that's a great question because yeah, as a front end engineer, there's a lot of pain points when interviewing because essentially like when you interview for the front end, they
Yeah.
kind of expect you to know like everything,
Wow.
rather than,
Mhm.
if you say like, oh, you're pure back end or something like that, then the system design interview like is kind of made for you, and they're not going to quiz you on
Right.
any sort of front end stuff. Even as a front end engineer interviewing for front end stuff, they don't really like the CSS is not really tested like CSS stuff. It's more just about like can you like put together components and things like that. At least in my experience, it was tested a little bit, but like not
Mhm.
anything like, oh, code up this design or something like that. There wasn't really anything like that. But I did still have system design interviews, as a like
Front
full
end.
front-end
Wow.
engineer. So it's definitely a lot harder, I think, to interview as front end. So
Front
if you
end.
did want to, go the route that I think just gives you the highest chances,
Mhm.
or I guess requires the least amount of like widespread preparation,
Mhm.
then I think back end would be the way to go.
Right. And then does front end engineer also have the same DSA rounds?
Exactly. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
kind of like you just basically expand the amount of stuff that you need to know, if you go
Mm,
for it. Because like everything that the
mm,
standard sort of engineering round would go in, and
mm.
then just more now that you're from.
Wow. Yeah. Um, I love system design interview. That's now I'm a solutions architect, right? So that's basically my bread and butter. Um, but yeah, I have my biggest regret in IT field is not knowing front end because
Mm,
I will have a lot of ideas, but then I would not be able to implement the UI or UX. And the
mm.
first thing people see is the front end. Even if it doesn't matter how much you know back end, I'm very comfortable coding the microservices. I can design and code the backend, which can scale to millions of users. But then I'm like, man, how do I do this front end stuff? And I always put up like super rudimentary HTML code to test my own projects. And I tried learning. There's a Udemy course, Angela Yu, and she has like 100 hours of front end course. I started going through it, but I'm like, okay, this is like too much different than what I know. And currently it's not high priority for me, so I stopped. But I wish I knew a little bit of front end. Then I feel like I would have implemented a lot more stuff than knowing backend.
Yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
kudos to
It's
you for giving like the actual props and actual answer that hey, if you want more jobs and stuff, do backend because it's very difficult, right? To go above your own biases. Like it's easy for you to say, no, front end is the best. Do front end, you'll get most amount. So I give
No,
you
I mean, I
kudos for
can
that.
definitely attribute to the pain points for sure. I mean, to be fair though, I guess I haven't like interviewed as full back end,
Yeah,
recently. So I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe they do quiz you on front end stuff, but I'm pretty sure they don't.
No, so for the backend part, even the interviews I take because the candidate says backend, um, front end maybe like they would ask me like, "Hey, how would you run a front end?" Right? And then
Oh,
because I'm more on the cloud side, I'll say, "Okay, you can run this web server. These are the options. You can run it on a container, package it up in Kubernetes or something, or you could use something like S3 CloudFront, da 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 da." But if they go
yeah,
deeper than that then they know like I don't know right back
exactly.
I'm a
Yeah.
back end guy. um
That's funny.
Excellent. So switching topic, which you touched upon a little bit, that you want to grow your newsletter. And how many newsletter subscriber you have now? Like 50,000 or something, right?
Yeah, I think I'm just hitting 57,000.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So, and this is for my own knowledge as well as for the viewers. So, how do you come up with new ideas for these newsletters and posts?
Mm. It's kind of like, I guess, let me start by saying kind of the way to not do it.
Hmm.
So so you know, if you ever kind of like tried to solve like a really hard problem
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like sitting there like by yourself and you just like nothing comes to mind,
Yeah.
like it's because you kind of like need to get out of your own head,
Right.
so um what I do for coming up with new ideas is I read a lot. I think about what is my take, on
Mm-hmm.
this topic. Let's say I read about, how to give feedback or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I'm like, yeah, this is good, but they've kind of missed this other part here. Or
Mm-hmm.
this is like good, but they don't really have any actual like examples, or how would
Mm-hmm.
you say this sort of thing? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you've read those like WikiHow articles where it's
Yeah.
like how to give feedback, be polite.
Yeah.
Like so like I'm not saying I read WikiHow articles, but I do read,
Right.
just in general, I keep up
Sure.
with I read stuff on LinkedIn. That's a good source of things. And then
Yeah.
I have like a Todoist. I use Todoist as my, to-do list tracker. And I literally have, it's a like folder, or I guess like a project, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's called in Todoist, where it's newsletter posts. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I think right now I have like 27
Nice.
in there or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And then, when I go to write my newsletter for the
Mm-hmm.
week, I'm like, is there anything that is on my mind, just from what's happened like recently, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I want to reflect on it or learn something better. And a lot of the time I do have something there. And
Right.
so I just like write about that. If I don't, then I'll go, to my archive, which is kind of like never ending,
Right.
because I am normally writing about something that is already on my mind that week. And then
Right.
I would have already just like cataloged something, so it's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like constantly growing as like backlog of ideas.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I have very hard time writing because I'm good at writing system design doc because they are all diagrams explaining and stuff. But as part of solutions architect, you have to write blogs and stuff. And I have such a hard time with that because in the blogs, you have to write very succinctly, right?
Mm,
Generally, I'm very verbose. And the same challenge I have with my newsletter because I put a lot of stuff out. I'm like, man, this is a lot of information, but it's like it could be done better, right? So I get
mm-hmm.
into this like writing, stuck in like bad writing mode. Any tips for people like me who are ESL and want to get better at writing? Because
Yeah,
you are a prolific writer.
that is an honor to hear you say that, because I mean, in school, like I hated, writing. I never felt like I was that good or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I mean, I would just say that my biggest tip, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
so bad for repeating it so much, but is like read smart brevity. It will
Okay.
just hammer in this one concept of just
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about what it is that you're trying to communicate to the reader,
Mm-hmm.
not writing from the perspective of like, this is what I want to get out, of my head, but like, what is it that I want the reader to know? What is
Mm-hmm.
it that what will give the reader the highest value?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do right at the end of my article is I'll just scan it, maybe like once or twice, and I'll just go through each line and I'll say, is this giving the reader value? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it giving it enough value? Like, I think isn't there a quote somewhere? I forget if it's from Jeff Bezos, where it's like every word like has a cost or something
Yes.
like that. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So you kind of like view it like that, it's like, is this word paying its
Wow.
dividends, in
Mm-hmm.
cost? And if you can like just get rid of it, then do that.
Yeah.
Another tip too is I use Hemingway. So I'll just like copy and paste, my article. It takes
Mm-hmm.
2 seconds. Just do a gut check, like if the readability score is in the red zone, then you
Mm.
know, like so all you do is you just copy and paste. It'll give you a readability score. And if you're higher than like 8, then you might want to like look at, you know, a good amount of different areas and things like that. And it'll point out the areas where it feels like are
Mhm.
too wordy or not readable or something like that. So yeah,
Wow.
overall, just cut. Think about reader value, you know, at the like forefront.
I love it. I don't use Hemingway, but now I will. So this is very, very useful advice for me. On the same note, Jordan, like what is the most important thing that you need to do to grow a community? Like growing a 57,000 newsletter, and I know you have 60,000 LinkedIn followers is no joke. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you want to share?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing again for me would be to share like what not to do, because I see it done so many times,
Mm-hmm.
and that is like write in a vacuum. Like I think what you're doing, right, is great. You know, you have your YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
you like post elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you connect with other creators, right? And I do the same thing, and you see
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of the creators, you know, that are successful do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, imagine if, let's say, like, I mean, some of the people that I read from are like just incredibly high quality articles,
Mm-hmm.
but no one would find them. Like I've just sort of found them like over the years, you know, just
Right.
like through obscure sort of things and
Yeah.
things like that. And it's like they just post on their own little personal site
Mm-hmm.
slash blog route,
Yes.
and like,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, no one would ever find it unless if, you know, you just sort of luckily stumbled upon it one day or something like
Yeah.
that. And so, yeah, really be willing to connect with other people that are doing the same thing. Don't view it as a zero sum game, you know,
Right.
like we can all, you know, thrive together, you know, as
Mm-hmm.
creators, like helping each other out and exposing each
Absolutely.
other to new people. Um, and yeah, and just share what you learn, share what you do.
Excellent. And for all creators, we all get negative comments time to time, right? As we do more of it, more negative comments. So how do you handle such unappreciated comments or posts or comments on your posts, and how do you like deal with it?
I cry. uh, yeah, no, I mean, I think the most worst ones that I get are
Mhm.
on Reddit. You know, I'll post to r/programming, and
Mhm.
sometimes people are just like super hateful or
Right.
you know, like I'm just so confused by, you
Mhm.
know, like how they get to the conclusion, you know, that they
Yeah.
do. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm like, like how do we, yeah, like how do we get here, you know? And at the same, like, and like, did you still have that thought in the back of your mind of like, you know, did I do something wrong? Is there something
Mhm.
like I could have done better still? Or and yeah, I mean, I don't really know, honestly, if I have good advice around here, because I mean, I've talked about this and it's just like one of the downsides, you know, of
Mhm.
that you have to kind of accept, like, of
Mhm.
doing it.
Mhm.
Um, but if you are maybe like sensitive that stuff, avoid
Mhm.
those places, you know, where
Right.
they post it, block, or maybe just understand that, you know, you did your best
Mhm.
to, you know, put out what you thought like was good
Mhm.
stuff. Not everyone, you can't please everyone. Not everyone is going to have, you know, a high praise thing to say,
Right.
and that's okay. But
Mhm.
like one thing that I always try to go back to is like, did I get the value out of writing that piece, you know,
Mhm.
that I wanted to?
Mhm.
And a lot of the time it's, you know, learning for me. It's, you know, the fact that I wrote all that, spent a bunch of time, you know, like improving my writing uh by writing all that out, cutting it a bunch of times, thinking about what is, you know, the most valuable thing for the person, doing the research, you know, to like understand, you know, what are some good things to share, reflecting back on my experiences
Mhm.
and thinking about what were some of the good things, you know, that I did in the past, or the bad things, and, you know, sharing about that. And now like those things will stick with you. A lot of
Mhm.
the times, now that I think about it, I mean, I don't like these hater comments, they don't even stick with me at all. Like I don't even remember
Right.
them. So I just remember that they were there, is
Right.
all. So yeah, just try to remember the value that you got out of it and wanted to.
So the next question, Jordan, is you do a lot of things, right? You have a full-time job, you newsletter, you post in Reddit, LinkedIn. You also like explore the city of Philadelphia, which is me and my wife's favorite city. So
Oh yeah.
how do you manage time to do all this?
It is a constant process for
Mhm,
sure. I have been experimenting over the last like year and a half
mhm,
of just trying different things out.
mhm,
The thing that I'll start high level and then I'll kind of go like more tactical. So
mhm,
the highest level thing that I can say is start from like a sort of with the end in mind and
mhm,
then work backwards, so ways that plays out is maybe you're, thinking about, let's say, what is the thing that you want to have accomplished by the end of the year, right? And
mhm,
then, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, what are the quarterly goals, that you would need to do then? What's the thing that I need to do like next month? What's the thing
mhm,
that I need to do next week? What's the thing that I
mhm,
need to do tomorrow? And all those things kind of feed in, overall to that thing,
mhm,
rather than just thinking, like, because I used to have this problem of I would just get an infinite number of things that I'm reading and I need to keep up with and all that
mhm,
stuff, and I would just that like I would just constantly be adding that right to my
mhm,
stack of, okay, this is what I got to read tomorrow, this, and then I'll like and I'll tell myself, when I finish all of these and they stop coming, then I'll be able to do my thing that I actually, want to get done.
mhm.
And you know what? They never stop coming.
Then I was like, fine.
YouTube
Yeah,
will never stop giving you recommendations.
right.
The articles will never stop coming. Your LinkedIn feed will never stop. So you really need to like make sure you carve out like the time to do the things, that you want to accomplish. So I guess getting a little bit more specific into, my specific process, one, that is kind of what I do. I do,
Mhm,
at the start of the year, I did set, some goals for myself, and I sort of work backwards and turn it into actionable steps. But the main like sort of week by week process is a thing called the time sector system.
okay.
And essentially what I do is like, at the start of the month, I will say, these are all the things that I hope to get done like this month. Then at the start of each week, I'll take those things from the month and
Mhm,
then I'll say, okay, this is what I expect, to get done in this week. And then each day I take a look at my this week,
mm,
bucket. And then I'll say, what do I expect to get done today? And what do I expect to get done tomorrow? And then I'll basically, that will be my to-do list for the day. I only look at that. I don't look at anything else. If
mm,
something comes up that I need to bucket, then I'll just put it in the right category. So I'll put it in this week if I really need to get it done this week.
mhm,
And that means that, it'll be a little bit more bloated potentially. Or next week, if I just want to think about it next week and maybe plan next week, or next month, I can put it in the next month bucket. And it's
mhm,
just like, this is not that important, I'll just put it off till later type of thing.
mhm.
So that's kind of how the system like materializes. And I talk about it in one of my articles too. It's called the thing I wish I started doing on day zero of my
Okay.
software engineering career, like that type of thing. So yeah, that's overall my process. But I am working on I'm reading Make Time right now, the book,
Mhm,
and it kind of talks a little bit about some of these concepts as well. One thing that I'm trying out is basically like having one highlight. They call it
mm,
having one highlight for the day. The thing that you must, do by the end of the day to
mhm,
feel like you actually got at least something done.
mhm,
And then that way, like, you at least have one thing where even if like all these other articles that came up or whatever that you're like, oh man, this seems really interesting, like you made sure to like block out time for this one thing,
mhm.
and you get that thing done at least, and that'll make sure that you don't end the day feeling like you got nothing done.
Excellent. This is like an algorithm, Jordan. It's like spoken like a true software engineer.
It really is.
I,
Yeah.
I love it. So
Uh,
Jordan, how can people get more of you? How can they connect with you?
yeah, so LinkedIn, my newsletter,
Mhm,
LinkedIn, search, Jordan Cutler, newsletter, High Growth Engineer. I'll share, my learnings,
mhm,
and just tips in general on how to become, a better software engineer each week. I think, yeah, those would be the two main places. I post, pretty actively on LinkedIn and every week on Substack.
Yeah, and I'll give all the links in the description. And I highly recommend following Jordan and subscribe to his newsletter. They're excellent. I can vouch for them. Jordan, thanks for stopping by to the show and chatting with my viewers.